Hello and welcome back to the official Clyde FC podcast. We are not a myth, we do still exist, and we are delighted to be back ahead of a new league campaign, albeit rather disappointingly back in League Two, and hopefully it's a short stint there and we're back on League One this time next year. Joining me to review the summer activities so far, I'm delighted to say that we are joined by Dougie Dewar, and we're also joined by Graham. And I'm slightly delighted you're here too, at least whilst your internet holds up, mate. How's your summer been, boys? Has it been quiet? Have you been up too much? Have you missed Clyde?
Yeah, I've been adventuring. So I've been in Paris, coaching my nephew's football team. So we had a weekend away in Paris, where we played in the Parc des Princes and even got to see Messi's last ever game for PSG and potentially Mbappe's last ever game for PSG. Heard on the rumour mill that he's always wanted to come and play in the west of Scotland. So, Jim, if you're watching, hope you've got him in the phone book. See if he wants a wee 12-month stint coming to play for Clyde before he goes off to Madrid.
Wasn't the West of Scotland League? Because I hear Davos got quite a bit of cash behind them.
Well, it might be. Darvel, East Kilbride, but hopefully we can pick him to the post and Killian wants to come and play for the Billy Wee. Never know.
Graham, what about yourself? You've been working in that handicap, gone fishing for golf balls. How's it looking?
Yeah, so you don't go fishing for golf balls, Paul, but I'll teach you how to play golf one day.
That's my
No, I have been trying to. Unusually, we had some good weather for a wee spell there after the season finished, so taking advantage of that. I've definitely got a golf watch tan line. Had some success and some that we'll just forget about. But yeah, when it gets to the stages, of the summer, your thoughts start, going back to when's the first game, what's it going to look like? Let's go.
Yeah, so let's go then. If we're going to move away from the ice-breaking chit-chat, let's go straight to it. Let's talk Clyde. But before we do that, I think let's take a moment and acknowledge a sad passing within our club's history. We lost a giant of our game and our club with the sad news of Craig Brown's passing, a man that won 2 titles with the Bully Wee in his 409 games in charge. And only the lure of assisting Scotland took him away from his beloved Clyde, and the rest, as they say, is history. He remains to this day the last man to take our national team to a World Cup, and he gave so many generations of football fans in this country memories to last a lifetime and more. Graham, you were lucky enough to watch the Bully Wee under Craig. What were some of your favourite memories of his manager tenure?
I think, I was, believe it or not, I was actually quite young at the time. When I think of Shawfield, I think of Craig Brown. I started going maybe in 77. My dad would probably confirm that better when my mum told my dad to get me out of the house. But there wasn't much early memories, but definitely looking at the left-hand side of Tommy McQueen, Stevie Evans and Pat Nevin. Then you had guys like Derek Fry, Danny Masterton, John McVie, Andy Willock. So he definitely had a good eye for attacking players who like to play attacking football. Shawfield was never, I know Shawfield is home to a lot of people, but it was never a great place to watch a game of football. You were a good 20 yards away from where the actual park was, and we were in the kind of enclosure. So I think the fans the other side of the ground maybe get a better view of it. But apart from the time where you had to the sponsorship through the Duns with Solripe, and you're having to try and dodge Craig Napier trying to scud a carton of orange juice off your napper when you're sitting on the wall, it was all about, especially the start of a season. Clyde in those days, the early 80s, seemed to start off really, really well. Derek Fry would have scored 16 goals after 5 games, that kind of stuff, and then scored 1 goal between now and the end of the season. So he always had a mind of attacking football. And I think when you look at some of the testimonies you've seen, especially from Pat Nevin, that it was his man management skills. Now, we might touch upon it later on. We can be fickle at times as football fans, because the overriding memory I can remember is Brown must go. So that was something that was chanted quite a lot, but that was just football at the time. We had some great games. We went away to Motherwell, who were a Premier League team, with Brian McClare playing for them, and we beat them in the Cup. Pat Nevin scoring there, beat them 4-3, and we were listening to it in Super Scoreboard, and that was a big thing in those days. We had a trilogy of games against Partick Thistle that, Arthur Montford was commentating in the first game at Firhill. We drew 2 each. Greg Young saved 2 penalties. Then the lights went out in the second game when we were drawn 1 each. We won't talk about the third game and Robert Riley almost hitting the corner flag with a penalty. But it was those kind of atmospheres, a packed Shawfield with, some really, really good players. And most of these players went on to, to bigger and better things. Guys like Paul Flexney, Ian Ferguson, he started his career under Craig Brown, playing as a winger, if you can believe that. He was a winger with Clyde. Then John Clark came in, put him back to midfield. But the eye that Craig Brown had for talent was exceptional, and obviously you can even tell from what Pat Nevin was saying about his man management skills, the ability to negotiate a deal to get him to come to Clyde when he chucked football, based on the fact that he could still do his university courses and stuff like that as well. So I think if you were a player looking for a club and you had 5 minutes with Craig Brown, he would have sold the club really, really well.
Yeah, and I think, Pat, you mentioned Pat Nevin discussing the impact that Craig Brown had. Pat Nevin, one of the lines that he said was, I owe him my career. I owe him my career in football. And he done that for many, many, many footballers across his entire career. It was an incredible tenure in football that Craig had. He was a part of a very successful Dundee team in the 60s as well. An all-conquering Dundee team back then. And yeah, for myself, slightly younger than you, Graham, hope you don't mind me saying, I do like saying it. And I still remember Euro 96, the heartbreak of David Seaman conveniently letting that one go through his legs that knocked us out as we were beating the Swiss, and then France 98 and the buzz that created. And that was largely down to Craig and taking, it was a good Scotland squad, fairly limited, I think it's fair to say, in some departments, but we still owe him that lasting memory of France 98, the opening day, schools across Scotland getting closed and running home. I broke my sister's toe that day, just celebrating the penalty award from jumping up and down and landing on it. That wasn't even when we scored it. It was carnage. But yeah, these are just things, and they're, for me, tied to Craig Brown. And what I loved more recently, Craig came to events, he had his tie on, the love that he still had for the football club, and it was reciprocated right back at him. So ahead of the match tomorrow, there will be a minute's applause in honour of Craig, and I believe there will be a full tribute published in the first Clyde View of the League campaign. I'm pretty sure of that, but if it's wrong, apologies. There will be a full tribute published. So, right, let's look at the here and now. Let's look at where Clyde Football Club are as at this stage, early stage of the season. Dougie, I'm going to come to you first. So, the summer transfer window is always fun and games. Everyone has their opinions. Some of them wild, some of them pretty accurate. How would you rate the summer window so far?
Good question. And at this point, I just want to point out I'm younger than both of you. Just thought I'd throw that in there. The window, I would say, obviously, you've still got a lot of time left. And I think probably the consensus from a lot of people is going to be around what sort of market we've got in terms of loan deals coming in to bulk the squad up a bit. I like the fact that we've brought in a bit of experience into the squad, which we were probably lacking at times last year. That might have might have seen us across the line in the playoffs. Clearly, a lot of guys that Jim knows well. He's not had to delve too far into the phone book to get some of the guys in, having worked closely with them at Dumbarton. So it's good to see some of that experience coming in to supplement the guys that we've managed to keep. And the kind of young guys coming through, time will tell how we got on with having that blend in the team. I know there's always a little bit of concern when you see another 18-year-old coming into the squad and thinking about how are they going to make that mark on the team so quickly. But we've seen plenty of young guys come through and really hit the ground running and just thrive on getting that opportunity for first team football. We're signing a lot of guys who've got good pedigree coming through some of the the top Premiership academies in the country, albeit they've maybe not made the grade to get a full-time deal there. But all these teams, they're not going to have these guys and bringing them through the youth setups if they don't see something that they like. So it's an opportunity for a lot of these younger guys to come in and really experience what first team football is like. And they're probably not going to get, a harsher introduction to that than in the Seaside League in Scottish football, where it's probably historically known as a bit of a cloggers league and Route 1 football. But from listening to some of Brian's comments so far in pre-season and what we saw in probably the first hour or so of the Accies game, is he's wanting to try and play football. Long answer to your very short question. I think the work that we've done so far has been decent, but it's going to really be supplemented by what some of these bigger teams are going to see in terms of their kind of starting squad for the season and who they can probably afford to go and send out for a bit of first team football. The big thing I think we're going to need is a goal scorer, but every team in the country needs that. So anybody who does come up is going to be in pretty hot and high demand. So hopefully we get in there first.
Graham, I'll maybe give you another angle then on the retained list. How much merit do you see in that? Obviously, last season was, how can I put this politely, not great as far as results go. And there's been a fair number, obviously, of the last season squad retained. Now, do you see that as a potential positive in that these are players with a point to prove?
Potentially positive.
Too generous? If I'm being too generous in that regard, I'm open to hearing.
I think what you said there about being potentially positive is a good thing. I'll use Liam Scullion as an example, and somebody who probably came in at the start of last season, much like some of the players that Dougie was mentioned there at the start of this season, with some ability or potential, but without much first team football. And I have to credit Jim Duffy for this. I thought the latter half of last season, he was one of our best players. It's probably since the horror own goal at Montrose, he really came onto a game and was a driving force. So retaining that type of player is good, but we've got to look and see. This is still some players who were involved in us being relegated as well. Positive, they've got a point to prove. They want to right that wrong. Negative is that they may be carrying that unwanted baggage of maybe lacking in some confidence, where none of the names have actually surprised me, and I'll be trusting in the fact that Brian has played with these and is now coaching these guys. Okay, so knows their quality week in, week out, not just in the 90 minutes that the games come with. So somebody who's got some experience in there as well. Obviously, we've got the backing of Jim and the Sands with that as well. But it all goes and depends on what kind of football Brian's looking to implement with it as well. So, for example, you're looking at budgets. Last year would have been a League One budget. This year is a League Two budget. So would I be amazed if the players that are retained are now doing it because they want to play for the club and right those wrongs, as I said earlier on, and maybe are not getting the same League One wages they were last year. If they are, that's great. I really applaud that, and the fact that they're looking to prove a point in regards to that. And there is a nucleus of a team there. I remember when Graham Roberts brought all those youngsters with decent pedigree in, but they were just that. They still needed Tom Brighton and Alex Williams, to name a couple, to put that kind of icing on top of the cake there. I still feel we're missing that. I still feel that we shouldn't be relying on the loan department for that. I think we should be going out. I'd love to see us sign a player from a team. Actually go in and take somebody who's signed up with another team and go and buy them. Whether that's possible, whether the budget allows it, I don't know. But have that marker down and signal that intent that we're not just here to perform at the top end of the league. We're here to win the league and win it handsomely.
Bold statement, Graham, but I do like the thinking, and I wouldn't disagree with it. As you say, though, a lot's going to depend on budget. I do think the loan market will be utilised, as Dougie touched upon. It would be foolish not to. If you can, cost, but you're not going to spend as much in the loan market as you would potentially. But
we need to utilise that, I think, as well. But you've got until the end of September to do that, and I think you'll have a better idea of where you are, maybe 5-6 games into the campaign, to see what areas you're maybe needing to get loans in on. So I think we use that time that we've got. We use the time that we've got just now to get games under our belt. This Viaplay Cup at this point in time is just a nonsense. It's pre-season, and I know that some will look at that and it's a competitive game. We should be looking to win it, but it's the game's kicked off the middle of July, so we can't really gauge those. These are just games to get players who haven't played much competitive football and then try and get the nucleus of a starting 11 ready for the Spartans game. I still think we're missing, especially up front, as Dougie alluded to. But from there, if we can get a settled 11 on the park, 4 or 5 on the bench, hopefully, and then from there we can see what areas we're looking at to bring in those loans of the quality that Dougie was talking about.
Yeah, obviously the numbers at the moment for putting a squad out, especially for the first 2 games, haven't been great. I think we had 2 field subs for the Accies game and a whopping 3 for away to Cove, and that's against 2 full-time teams. Even with a full supplement on the bench, it's going to be a hard ask. Looking back then on the Accies game, very briefly, I wasn't there, so I can't comment too much. I did watch it after the game, but it's slightly different than taking it in live.
You mean you didn't get the live stream, mate?
What's that?
You didn't get the live stream when you were on holiday?
Unfortunately, EasyJet don't offer Wi-Fi on their planes. Otherwise, I would have.
Live stream is available for the Brecon City game, or if this goes out after that, I hope that you all got your live stream for the Brecon City game.
As long as I get my finger out after this, it'll be out before the Brecon game. Don't worry about that. So yeah, I did watch it, and there were aspects I thought they were decent, Dougie, but it's fair to say Accies over the piece deserved to win. It was highly frustrating, though, that we didn't maybe at least hold on for a point, and maybe that wee Brucey bonus of a bonus point in the shootout.
Yeah, I'd agree the legs went, which I know is one of the things that Brian commented on in some of his first kind of interviews when he took over, was that fitness was a big thing for him this season, and that the fitness levels last year were below what he'd expected. As Graham said, there's guys who've probably only had, 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off before coming back into training. So it's probably the League Cup is just glorified friendlies at times for teams like us. It's very much weighted in the favour of the big teams with the big squads. The fact that we can't even play trialists in the competition, I think, is a... Well, this isn't the official view of anyone at Clyde FC, but I think it's a bit of a farce, given how short a period of time we've had to actually try and construct a squad. So, as you say, you're going in with 2 subs on the bench. Had we had a full complement and been able to make another 2 or 3 outfield subs, personally, I think we'd have taken that game of penalties. We wouldn't have lost. You could just see that the legs went a little bit. Fell out of position and just kind of some scrappy goals at the death. But I felt that Wilson maybe didn't create a lot after the goal that we scored. We held our own. The Ackies didn't really look like they were going to threaten us hugely. I don't know if that was down to how well we were organised or how kind of rusty they are, given that they've had quite a high turnover of players as well. But I definitely felt the first hour we more than held our own. Don't know about you, Graham.
I think, after the 90 minutes, the best team won. And I would say that, we talk about retained players. I think Neil Parry did keep us in it at times as well before they did equalise. We can look at, we scored a wonder goal and all three of their goals are utterly avoidable. But I think as well, it's funny because I was listening to the groans of discontent from the Ackies faithful. Throughout pretty much the first half, getting booed off at half time and stuff like that as well. So that sounds familiar, especially given where we were sitting. We started the game well. What I think the key moment in the game probably was, and we look at Ross Forbes and what he can provide in terms of delivery, a set piece, a corner kick, and Dunnicky, the new centre half, meets a header after an inch perfect cross, and the keeper makes a great save. We score that 2-0. I think we're comfortable at seeing the game out. But yeah, there's a lot of young boys there. Even I'll touch on John Craig, who I thought came on to a really good game last season, but he just signed, so he's been doing nothing. He signs on a Friday, plays on a Saturday. So we did look as if we were leggy, particularly in the full-back areas.
As well, just kind of thrown together a wee bit, not played a lot together.
Yeah.
A training ground that's not really conducive to play a full-time team.
It's not, but the best team won, but small margins, but the intent was probably the one thing I took from the Ackies game, the intent against a team who last season were a league above us, and this season, will be a league above us. I thought they looked a better outfit at the end of the game than they did in the Betfred Cup against us. So they've made some better signings for the level. But the best team won. But there was the intent that Clyde had to play through the channels and look at the movement up top. From Mulvaney, for example. Finding space, I think you've got the ability to find somebody now with that space, with likes of Ross Forbes and Carswell when he comes back in, and obviously we've got somebody else that can maybe run the channels and maybe get some legs on some defenders now as well. So very much impressed with the intent. Right result, okay, but small margins.
Yeah, and it's mad because we followed that up with the trip to Cove, and we lost 5-2, but in the most bizarre sense, I was expecting, because I didn't make it up, I was expecting to hear, just it's honking, carry on for last year, all this. But it was such a positive write-up for most people that were at the game saying, yeah, and another day we don't lose that game. I mean, we conceded 5.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of positivity about, and obviously following the Twitter updates, I think there was a 20-minute spell at the start of the second half in particular, we thought, we get the next goal here, this could easily swing back in our favour. Unfortunately, we decided to concede 2 in 2 minutes, as has been a bit of a theme in the 2 games so far. But at the same time, you've got to try and take the positives. I'm not fussed at this moment. I'm kind of like yourself, gents, where there's no need for... I like the league cup group stage as a format. I think there's a lot of merits to it. I think you've got at least that one guaranteed game against a top flight team, all that. There's benefits to it for clubs in our division. There's just no need to be this early. It doesn't help anyone, or they need to tweak the rules slightly to allow trialists. I think was it last year as well, Peterhead had only 11 players and they had to get 2 guys out of retirement just to basically have people on the bench. Like, these guys were away playing effectively Sunday league, like not even amateur stuff, that they got out of retirement just to fill a bench, and that's not a worthwhile competition in my opinion. It just makes a bit of a mockery of it. We don't even know if the sponsor's going to be around next year, so we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I'm not losing any sleep over the first two games. I don't think Brian is either. I did catch up with Brian following training on Saturday morning just to get his view on things so far, view on the new addition of Cian Leslie, and also a look ahead to the Brecon City match. And here's what Brian had to say.
So Brian, 1 week down, 2 competitive matches under your belt now. How would you look back on the first week and 2 tough games against full-time opposition?
Yeah, very productive, especially on my part, especially the younger group that we're trying to assemble and get together. Then it's definitely been beneficial. I think with the Hamilton game, we definitely needed that in terms of getting that out of our system. And then on the flip side, going to Cove Rangers and performing the way we did, it was pleasing, especially second half. Granted, the goals that we concede and give away are not acceptable, and that's something that we've addressed this morning, and we'll continue to eradicate those errors in terms of the decision making going forward. But I think largely in parts of the game on Tuesday night, we were pleasing in a lot of aspects. But ultimately, it's putting the ball in the back of the net, and thankfully we are showing signs of that this year, scoring 3 goals in 2 games. But then you can't allow to concede 8 on that side of things. So that's up to ourselves as a coaching staff to try and nullify that and drum that into the group, the squad, the players going into the season.
Obviously, you've not been helped by injuries, as seems to be the way at Clyde in recent years. Is there any update on any of the players coming back, or what's the kind of timeline for?
Yeah, well, Darren Hines took part in some of the session today, which is good for him. We've also got the new addition of Cian Leslie coming in from Kilmarnock, which I know quite well. So he'll be a brilliant addition to the squad. Another outlet for us. A brilliant character as well, and he'll be able to handle himself on this pitch as well. So excited that he's in the door and joined us. I think Connor Scullion might have taken a knock as well on Tuesday night, so we'll assess him as things develop towards the Brecon game. But majority of the squad are in good shape, and you would have started today with the sessions.
So yeah, just on Brecon then, what type of match are you expecting on Tuesday, or more so, what are you expecting from ourselves?
Well, that's it. You hit the nail on the head. It's not about anybody else. It's about us and what we do, and what we're good at. It's important that we figure that out. I've got a good idea in terms of how I see us developing and playing, and I've implemented that in the session today. Right from the get-go, and it's important that we've got a clear understanding, front, middle, back. We've got that connection when we're in possession and out of possession. Then it's important we home in on the aspects that we know that we can hurt teams and cause teams problems, and we've done that. We've showed that in glimpses against Hamilton, and we showed that on a number of occasions against Cove. But again, it's that final little bit of putting the ball in the back of the net, and that's the hardest thing to do in football. We're all right up to a point, and we've been like that, especially last year. But I'm excited for the game on Tuesday night, as well as Saturday, to lead us in 2 competitive games that we're looking forward to, and that will sign off our sort of pre-season campaign, really leading into the Spartans game. So looking forward to it.
So that was Brian's thoughts on the action so far. Graham, come to yourself. I don't think many people would disagree with what Brian thought on the opening 2 games.
No, I think it makes for good listening, and the fact that he feels there's encouraging signs there, and he also has identified areas that needs to be worked on and improved upon as well. So
He said
more than
it was
happy.
unacceptable
Yeah,
on conceding 5 goals, and that's against
Yeah.
full-time opposition. So he's setting high standards.
yeah, I think he is as well. But I mean, if you look at Cove signing, Paul McGowan today as well, I don't think we should underestimate the quality of opposition playing on their home pitch there as well. But that's encouraging as well, in the fact that he feels it's unacceptable to be losing 5 goals against a team who, have a little bit more about them than we do at this present time. A lot more experience, a lot more guile, but also what it will bring is a little bit more savvy in with the players who are now playing their second, third, fourth games. So the fact that they're working on it, the fact that he recognises there's some things working, and he recognises the things that aren't working and where to identify and improve upon them. It's easy for armchair or keyboard warriors to get involved and figure out where's the best way to play. I'm just going to trust the head coach, and the fact that I believe he deserves a chance. Let's see how he gets on with it. But from what it does say the word M more than a chairman, but apart from that, I think he's got me on board anyway.
He also mentioned the latest addition on loan from Kilmarnock, young Ian Leslie. I had the pleasure of joining training in order to interview Brian. One thing I will say about young Ian is he is lightning fast. If we can get him space, we don't need to worry about physicality. Nobody's catching him. Brian said the word's excited. He is excited to get Keane on board. How much are you looking forward to see him in action?
Very much so. I'm just concerned that you joined training, mate. I know we're struggling for
I
players.
was thinking that as well.
Surely we're not that desperate.
That's 2 subs.
Things aren't quite that bad just yet. Really excited to see what he can do. Having seen a few of the kind of clips online of him playing for Kelly, and certainly the Kilmarnock fans have got a lot of really positive praise for him. Considering how young he is, they certainly see him as quite a talent and a prospect. It's the type of player we've needed for a while, and we've kind of lacked width and a bit of creativity in the team for quite some time. So it's one of those ones, we don't want to put too much pressure and expectation on him, but he needs to win his league, essentially, is what we're going with that. If we can get, a bit of balance in the team and have somebody on the other side of the park to kind of mirror that. But again, going back to a point from earlier on in the pod, is that we need somebody in the middle to put the ball in the net. It's no use having him, skinning 2 or 3 guys down the line, firing the ball in the box, but everybody's 30 yards behind them because they can't keep up. You're going to need somebody in there to put the ball in the back of the net as well. It was interesting to hear what Brian's had to say. We've not heard a lot kind of videos or kind of audio stuff from him so far, so it was interesting to hear. He's got an idea how he wants us to play. I'm not happy with losing the 5 goals. I don't think anybody would be. But for me, that's got to be the thing we hit the ground running with in the league, is we need to cut out the silly mistakes and the really needless goals that we give away. Obviously, I think there was one in the Cove game, but the guys have probably only played together for 45 minutes at a time, playing in front of a new goalie. That communication will come with time and more match experience. But when we really hit the ground running in the league, we need to really sharpen up at the back, because we gave ourselves too much of a how at Clyde last year with just the really slack and silly defending. I know we've all talked a lot about scoring goals and putting the ball in the back of the net. That wasn't our problem last season for the first 6 months anyway. We had 2 of the top scorers in the league in January, but we were just shipping 3 or 4 at the other end, which kind of nullified the threat that we had. So for me, that's got to be a really, really firm start. Delighted to see the big Slovak god sign on again, as I'm sure a lot of people in the Shanks household are as well. And
Very happy teenager, let's put it that way.
And as we were talking about off camera as well, big Logan coming in from Motherwell looks a big unit. So hopefully they'll be kind of hard to beat at the back.
Yeah, and see the mistakes, just get them out of our system now. Like, if you're going to do it now. It's just be done with it, and as you say, hit the ground running come the league campaign. Right, we're going to not talk about Clyde for a bit and try not cheer too loudly. Let's have a wee change of pace. Let's look at the wider aspects of the footballing world and what's going on, and let's discuss what's happening with football. And in particular, I want to look at what is probably the main footballing story right now. And by that, I'm talking about Kylian Mbappe's mind-boggling $300 million move to the Saudi Premier League. That's going to reportedly earn him $700 million in the 1-year contract that he's set to be there. That's nearly $58 million a month, $13 million a week, $1.9 million a day, or all the way down to $22 a second, all tax-free. Now, I've kept the figures in dollars because that's how I looked them up. So if you don't like it, don't at me. I'm not going to read the tweet. And he's ready to turn down quite a few clubs in order to move to Saudi Arabia, and I can't possibly think why. Does this emphasise an aspect of football of player power? Do they have, especially these superstars, do they have too much power now, or is this just a new fad of a league that has more money than it can ever spend?
Yeah, where do you start with any of that? Some of the figures you've quoted as there are incredible. I'll trust your maths on it, but
don't trust me. It's the BBC. If it's wrong, it's the BBC.
It's disgusting figures when you really talk about it. We all love football, and it is our life from, not just for 90 minutes on a Saturday. We eat, sleep, drink football. A lot of us do. But there's more going on in the world. For me, the figures that are being discussed there, just think what could actually be done in the world with that sort of money. There's kids drinking dirty water out of puddles in Africa, and he's going to make $22 a minute or a second, was it? I think we lose sight of how important sport is at times, and some of the bigger stuff that's going on in the world. We might get censored as a podcast if we start talking about all the political aspects of it and what the actual motives are for a lot of what we've seen over the last 6 months, kicked off by Ronaldo when he threw his straw up in his interview, which I think is kind of what you're aiming at in terms of player power. His motives behind that were motivated purely just for his desire to get out his contract at Man United. And from a personal point of view, I think he see the difference in Man United when he left. He was a toxic influence in that dressing room for 6 months. And there was obviously a lot went on, and he wanted to go in the summer, and he probably felt he had no choice other than to do that interview and really force his way through. So player power at the moment certainly is. It's massive, and it has been. It's the biggest it's been for a good 10-15 years. I'm personally of the view that there has to be a point where salary caps get introduced. The American sporting world have got it nailed down. I know they've got exceptions here and there for your star players and that sort of stuff, but every team in the league's got a budget to try and level the playing field. You look at your NFL, you look at the NBA, you've got a cap for the team. If you want to spend £200 million on one player, great. but that's coming out of your budget. So you're going to have the rest of the Clyde squad playing with Kylian Mbappe, and that's your choice. But for me, that I think that ship might have sailed. I think we're too far gone to try and introduce that now. The money that's involved from a corporate perspective as well. I don't know how you would go to the likes of Erling Haaland and tell him, you're no longer getting 400 grand a week, you're only getting a quarter of that. Do you then stifle the sport, the sponsorship, the money that's coming in? You could probably do an entire 90-minute podcast on that alone. So yeah, I've given you another very long answer to your short question. Player power at the moment, I think, is huge in terms of throwing the toys out the pram, if you like, to force your way. But if we look back even the last 30, 40 years, whenever we look back at Jean-Marc Bosman, his career was done after he took a stand for his fellow pros, but it probably freed up a lot of guys to get out of their contracts, etc. So it's hard. Player power, I think, does need a part in the game, but it's known where that balance lies, and 200 million quid a fortnight is pretty excessive in my eyes.
Yeah, and for me, the money's so large that it's even caused a bout of amnesia with a particular player, and he forgot what he's been campaigning for over recent years as well. Graham, what about yourself? Would you get out of bed in the morning for $22 a second?
Yeah. But I'll go one further in the fact that it's player power has a part, but it's also backed up by pure and simple greed. So, I mean, you look at Ronaldo. Ronaldo was, for lack of a better term, contacted and tapped that this was available for him. So he then, with probably quite a bit of help, manoeuvred that interview that therefore manoeuvred his transfer away.
He went to the devil himself to help broker it, if you want to say.
When is enough? I remember, again, being one of the older gentlemen in the podcast, when Roy Keane signed a contract at Manchester United, so I don't have much sympathy for them, for £100,000 a week. So what do you do with £100,000 a week? I mean, he get fined most of it for getting sent off in tackles and stuff like that as well. But he's also making a very good living after football, after having those kind of wages. I mean, I was going to say Roy Hu there, but that's for another podcast around about January. But what do they do? What can they do? What has Mbappe not got that requires him to have that kind of money? What's he going to do with it? It's like Brewster's Millions, which is another old film that you probably haven't seen. But it's what can you do with all this money when it's tax free, but also he's there because he's a world-class football player and he's got amazing ability. But what kind of sports person is he? What kind of challenges is he going to present himself with in that division, in that league, in that country? He wants to be, winning a Champions League, obviously. He wants to be winning a World Cup with France, which he's already done, but he wants to be the level of a Messi or a Ronaldo. He wants to be that player of his generation. And he's basically sold himself down the river for that opportunity by going down the route that it looks like he's going to be taking. But again, when's enough? Where these figures? I mean, we touched on it earlier on. I like my golf. That these kind of figures have been bandied out by Live Golf and the things that they've done in the game of golf, and it's mind-boggling. You've got guys that. And I don't have as much anger towards them. You get guys like Lee Westwood's, Graham McDowell, who are coming towards the end of their career, who have made a good living out of the game of golf, but are maybe not, facing the same kind of challenges and being able to compete at the same level. There you go. There's X million pounds. Would you like to take that? Of course they would. But
would you not argue that the same's happening for the footballers as well, though, Graham? So yeah, obviously Mbappe, the likes of Jota for Celtic going across, for them that just seems like it's a payday. But
they've got more they can accomplish, whereas the likes of the golfers I mentioned are maybe coming towards the end. So I don't even with Ronaldo, you could argue at his age he was looking for his last payday. Well done, you got it. But Mbappe, Jota, the other ones that we talked about, they've still got so much they could still do, and they're kind of.
So here's a question for you then. So the team who are rumoured to be signing Messi, who else do they own a stake in the UK?
They've signed them, have they not? They've scored a free kick for them the other night.
Yeah, he's already signed.
Right, okay, so Mbappe, he's going to go to the team that own Newcastle United. So do we see a potential he goes to Saudi for a month and then joins Newcastle for the Champions League on loan for 6 months?
I'm sure has that not been bandied about as a rumour, as a serious possibility?
Is that out with the realms of possibility?
It's not, but this is where when you had the takeovers of the big English clubs, when that kicked off, that was just getting their kind of the foot in the door to see what they could do. You see charges being levied against Man City for, financial fair play. Barcelona, Chelsea get banned from signing players. When is this kind of thing going to come into place?
Can't find them. I mean, there's no point in finding them. They'll just take the spare change out of their pocket and say that's paid. They literally have more money than they could ever spend as a country as a whole, and that's obviously going through the league. I can't remember
so the players that they're signing.
Look, if they're looking for a project, is what I'm saying, right? There's a big one. It's west coast of Scotland. Just give us hit us in our DMs. Just let's start that conversation, guys.
Yep, let's get if you can have dual ownership, let's get Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney to come and do a This Is Clyde Netflix season 3. Why not? Why are we not approaching Hollywood actors to see what they can bring to the table?
You can go toe-to-toe with Ryan Reynolds. They had a wee bit of beef, not beef, but a banter online.
So there's a question, right? So when they come in and they take over Clyde, who's going to play each of you in the movie when they're doing a podcast episode? Put you on the spot. You can think about that and come back to me for the next episode then, right?
I get told that I used to look like Bob Hope from Emmerdale, so no Mallock, it would be that actor. Maybe we can just leave that out for people in the YouTube comments.
He was a director, wasn't
If it was really bad, I'll just start deleting comments.
And there's no comment. I mean, you painted my face green. I'm Shrek, but I don't know whether you can cross over Shrek, Gru, a fat Vin Diesel, whatever you want. It's fine.
Right. Well, I quite enjoyed that wee change of pace. It was good not having to talk about Clyde for a bit. Hopefully we don't need to use that too often throughout the season and we can just talk about wins all the time. But it'll be there for a rainy day in case we need it. But yeah, the show is the Clyde podcast, so we probably should go back to that topic. Let's look ahead then to what is the time of recording tomorrow night's match against Brecon. Brian touched upon it. It's all about what we do, not about what Brecon do. Tomorrow, are you putting much weight on getting this victory ahead of the league campaign, or are you still a bit, if it happens, do you? It's pre-season still.
You want to win. You always want to win. From a confidence perspective, probably more than anything. I believe they'll come at us and give us a good game. I think it was only 1-0 they lost to Accies this time last week. And then making another jaunt back down to Hamilton a week later. They will have a lot of confidence. They had a fantastic season last year and were very unlucky not to make their way back into the league setup. So they'll come to us with a point to prove. And obviously we're still gelling as a unit with lots of new faces in the squad. So I think we'll have a harder game than people might expect, given the fortunes of both teams last season. So yeah, I'd like to see us getting that win just to get a bit of confidence, because we'll probably head to the spaghetti had on Saturday without really any real hopes of getting anything out of the game. So it would be good to at least start and kick off our League 2 season having had a competitive win under our belt.
Yeah, same question then to yourself, Graham. Are you very much on the same train of thought? Let's get a win. Whatever happens at the Spaghetti Head, as Dougie calls it, was a brilliant nickname. Well, maybe do a football nicknames thing next week. That's giving me an idea for another wee segment, right? We'll go with that. Yeah, win, not at all costs, but let's just get a win, regardless of how maybe the performance is. Just win.
I think a win's pretty important. It will allow Brian to see if things that he's implemented are working or are starting to work. It'll allow him to, because Dougie's right, the game against Livingston is a bit of a write-off given the quality of opposition, even if they put the reserve team out. So we're not going to learn too much there. So I think we're going to learn a lot more in the Brecon game as to what's working, what our preferred lineup and thoughts are when we look ahead even further to the first game of the season against Spartans. So I think it is important, and I think it's another game under the belts for the younger players. It's possibly where we can start to get some of the players that have not featured yet more introduced. You need to think, obviously Keane that we talked about earlier on, the big boys at Dylan Duncan that we signed before the Cove game. I seen him in one of the kind of pre-season games. Looks like there's some ability there. So I think it is important that we set a marker down, not for what we do against Livingston, but what we're looking to do in our first league game of the season. So I think it is important, and it's not. It's easy to say. Last season we would have taken a win, and we waited months and months for a win. Just give us a win, give us 3 points, regardless of the performance. But that was last season when we were battling at the wrong end of the table.
We want to get garbage. We were garbage last season, Graham. That's not being British.
Yeah. So, but we were praying for 3 points regardless of the performance. I'm wanting a victory against Brecon, and I want a performance because I want to be looking forward to the next game and the next podcast and the next round of nicknames and the next Hollywood superstar that's going to take over Clyde. I want last season to be something that we don't talk about for a wee while, and I want to be talking positively this season.
Yeah, and one thing I would say is, regardless of the result tomorrow night, I don't imagine the starting lineup will be what is going to probably kick off the league campaign. There's going to be, I would still think, additions, but we do have players coming back from injury who some are a bit closer than others. Stuart Carswell, obviously a new signing. Ross Lyons working his way back. He's hopeful to be kind of back ahead of the league campaign, and others perhaps a bit more longer term. But yeah, there's still changes to be had from the players that we've already got signed up, plus any further additions. So whatever happens tomorrow night, panic, don't lose sleep over it, don't lose hair. Look what happened to Graham from stress. Just take it easy, right? Let's not press the panic button just yet. There's plenty of time for that the rest of the season. Listen, gents,
don't be an armchair quarterback and think the season's done before it's even started. That is just blind stupidity.
Half squats, But I'm not losing sleep over what happens over the next 2 days. But I'd much rather we win the next 2 games on the bounce than just win every game for the rest of the season. Listen, gents, it's been great back talking about Clyde and other things. It genuinely is good to see your face, Graham. I know I jest at times. It is good to see your face. And you haven't even buffered once on this recording. I think that's a first.
That's a first. I was going to advertise Guy's new product there, but I won't.
Like yourself, it's great to see you, and we'll see you again tomorrow, obviously. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you are just listening to us on the audio, we'll be back weekly. I know I say this every time and we don't always deliver, but we're really getting pushed to deliver weekly now, so I kind of have to. We'll be back next week. We'll discuss the latest actions. We're going to do nicknames, football and nicknames. Try and keep them clean, so I don't make any sense of them. But if you want to submit them, drop us on Twitter. Just a message, DM, tweet us at them. Let's see what you can come up with, either your own or the best ones you've heard. And Dougie, you get thinking because you're running that segment next week, mate.
Excellent. Look forward to it.
Right, so until next time, on it, Billy Reid.
I want to Clyde.
For me, it's how they play with passion, they play